Hi guys, it's Scotty from Taos Steelworks again. This is just another one of the tech tips I've been thinking about sharing. I get a lot of phone calls asking me about wheel fitment on square bodies, and what it really boils down to is there's two ways to get a good fit. One is to go out and find someone who's already running a setup you like, that's got the clearance, it tucks the tires the way you want, whatever, and find out exactly what they used. Get the specifications off their wheels, the specs off their tires, and just do what they did. The other one requires math, and people seem to really shy away from this, and I think it's because they've just never had anyone explain it to them. So I'm going to try to explain this to you in, I think, 2 or 3 parts. But we're going to start with understanding the dimensions of wheels and some information that you need to know when you're choosing them. This will also be important when you break out a tape measure and you start taking some measurements on your truck as you try to decide what you want to purchase. So follow along with me here, and I'm happy to answer any questions in the comments. Feel free to fire away, and you guys know where to find me. You can always give me a call or shoot me a message on Facebook Messenger or whatever. To begin with, you have to understand what wheel width, backspace, and offset mean. And this will be very elementary for you guys that know this stuff, but for those of you who are confused by it, that's who I'm aiming this video at. This is for you. Imagine we've cut a wheel in half and we're looking at the portion that we've cut away. This is what the steel of the wheel looks like. You've got the rim lip out here, and then this is the bead seat area, the rim lip and the bead seat area. This is the recess in the center that allows you to mount and dismount the tire. It lets you pull the tire off the rim on the opposite side. And then I've kind of faked in just a generic wheel mounting surface in here. These come in all kinds of shapes. I just need something to represent the mounting surface where the wheel is actually going to come in contact with the axle flange. The important things to know here is that wheel width is not measured from the outside of the rim. It's measured from the inside of the bead seat. So your wheel width is the space in between these two lips. And your backspace is measured from the wheel mounting surface here to the outside of the lip. Now, backspace can be a problem because on a steel wheel, the lip is real thin. But on an aluminum wheel, the lip can be really thick. So you can have two wheels that have the same width and the same offset that will have different backspace, because the backspace will be measured from the mounting surface to the outside of the lip on the steel wheel. That's thinner than it will be measured from the mounting surface to the back of the lip on the aluminum wheel. This can add 1/4 of an inch of backspace. It varies from manufacturer to manufacturer and from design to design. Backspace is not a reliable measurement that you can take from brand to brand or style to style in the wheels. It is helpful in some regards in knowing what sort of room you need for brakes and such as that, but it should not be your only thing that you rely on for fitment of the wheels. More important to you is going to be the wheel offset. If this is the center of the wheel where our wheel mounting surface is, that would be a 0 offset. Anytime we move that mounting surface towards the back of the wheel to give a deeper dish on the front, that's a negative offset. When we move that mounting surface toward the front of the wheel to give less of a dish and more backspace, that is a positive offset. Offset dimensions are measured in millimeters, and they are positive, meaning it's been moved forward, or negative, meaning it's moved back. Some common numbers that you're going to see in wheel dimensions, especially for these trucks, is you'll find them in 12 millimeter offsets, 19 millimeter offsets, and 25 millimeter offsets. You'll see others for sure, but these are real common. For easy thinking, just remember an inch is 25.4 millimeters, so this is about 1 inch. This is about 3/4 of an inch, and 13 millimeters would be a 1/2 inch, so this is about a 1/2 inch. So if you have a 12 millimeter offset, you can take approximately 1/2 inch off of the back of the wheel if it's a positive offset, and you throw that to the front. So your backspace, if these were evenly distributed in a 0 offset, say it's an 8-inch wheel, you'd have 4 inches back and 4 inches front. But if you have a 12 millimeter positive offset, you would take 12 millimeters out of the front space and put it onto the back space. So you would have 3.5 inches on the front and 4.5 inches on the back. Replay that several times to make sure you get it. A 12 millimeter offset being approximately a ½ inch. Positive offset would take front space, move it to the back, taking an 8-inch wheel and turning it into a 3½ inch front space and a 4½ inch back space, approximately. There are very minuscule variations that come into play when you're talking about backspace, so that's not going to equate directly to what you read in a catalog. And again, that's because there's a difference in every wheel manufacturer's and steel versus aluminum of how thick the rim lip is. Again, backspace is not included in offset in any way. Backspace doesn't equate to any particular measurement from brand to brand, so focus on offset. The most common wheels that you'll find on square bodies, factory wheels, are going to be a 0 offset on 2-wheel drives, and they typically have a little bit of positive offset, 12 to 19 millimeters positive offset on the 4-wheel drives. They opened up a bit more backspace for bigger brakes. If I'm wrong about that, guys, correct me. That's off the top of my head. You can go and look in wheel catalogs, like on Rock Auto. You can look up the factory wheel specs and see what they were for the 2-wheel drive versus 4-wheel drive to find out what was on your truck. That's always a good place to start. But the most important thing to remember is that offset is different from backspace. Now, the other thing that makes offset really important is it's measuring from the center of your tire mounting seats, the bead seats. That means when you're talking about offset of the wheel, you're also talking about offset of the tire. So when you do your math to figure out what your tire width is, I'll get into in the next section, you can take your offset and you can know that the tire will be set in or out. If it is a positive offset, it will be set in, and if it's a negative offset, it will be set out, either deeper or farther out of the wheel well. So offset translates to the tires. Backspace does not. So again, the sidewall, if you put a 9-inch tire on an 8-inch rim, that tire is going to be almost the same width as the wheel. If you put a 12-inch tire on an 8-inch rim, that tire is going to bulge out. This is where tire width is measured, is out on the bulge of the sidewall. Okay, so again, we're going to come back to offset. That's one of the 3 numbers that we're going to need. Now, you can calculate tire and wheel diameters pretty easily. I'm going to wish I had a calculator handy in a minute, but we'll try to keep this simple. If you have a 255 70 R20, that tire is 255 millimeters wide, and again, if you're looking at the tire on the wheel, the sidewall bulge is where that width is measured. That's the 255 millimeters. It is not the tread width. The tread width might be close to that, but it's typically less than the section width. So if we have a section width of 255 millimeters, remember again that an inch is 25.4 millimeters. You can divide 255 by 25.4, and you're going to come up with basically a 10-inch wide tire. So you'll have that. The 70 is your profile, which is the height of the sidewall. This is a percentage of this number. So you can take 10 inches and multiply it times 70%, and you will have a 7-inch sidewall. Now you have 2 sidewalls in every tire. So if your rim is 20 inches in diameter and you have 7 inches on both sides, then you can come up with this is a 34-inch diameter tire. Does everybody follow that? Now, again, back to the offset versus backspace. Backspace varies on the thickness of the rim and doesn't really accommodate the tire in any way. But offset, because it's centered on the bead seats and calculated off the bead seats, it will give you offset on the overall width of the tire too. That's important to know when you get into fitting something into your wheel wells. So the first thing you kind of want to figure out in your truck is how much space you have to work with. And the easiest way to do this is to come into your wheel well, take the wheels off of the axle, support it on stands so the truck is sitting on its own weight, and then have the brake drums or the brake rotor or whatever. I'm going to kind of fake this. It can play both. Wheel stud sticking out there. So this is your inner fender. We'll say that this is the inside of the wheel tub that's inside the bed, right? And that's going to be one obstacle that you don't want to hit. Then your outer fender, it has an inside wall also, and then it's got the fender. Make sure that you're not measuring out here. What matters is that you put your hand up on the inside and you measure in here. I would measure this to find out the total width of this. Top of my head, I'm just gonna say it's like 12 inches. I know it's more than that, but this will make for easy math. So if we have 12 inches and a stock Chevrolet wheel has 0 offset, and we put in a 10-inch wide tire, we're 0 offset because this mounting surface is in the center. That's going to give us 1 inch here and 1 inch here. If we go to a positive 12 millimeter offset, that's going to move the mounting surface to the front of the wheel, which would set it this way, that way, deeper into the truck, and it would take 12 millimeters away from your backspace. On the other hand, if it is a negative 12 millimeters offset in the wheel, then it's going to move the wheel outward, which would take away some of your clearance on the front side. So you could take your 25.4 millimeters minus 12 millimeters, and your 1 inch is suddenly turned into a ½ inch. The easiest way to kind of come up what will and work for you is I would just grab a piece of angle iron or flat stock that's not flexible, drill a couple of holes in it, and bolt it to the wheel face so that it can stick up in the fender and allow you to come up here and take these measurements to see what your available rear space is, what your available front space is. Remember, you're measuring to the inner fender lip, not the outer. So check that. And then when you know what you've got there, you can add those two numbers together. You can add the front to the rear. I would deduct 1 inch for the inside and minus 1 inch for the outside to come up with your maximum tire width. Then with that maximum tire width, you'll be able to choose what your offset is. If you're finding that this front space is bigger than this back space, it's giving you a clue as to what you want your offsets. When the number's bigger here, you want a negative offset wheel. If the number's bigger here, you want a positive offset wheel. Draw this out on a piece of paper so that you can understand how to set this fitment. But that's going to be the easiest way for you to decide what's going to fit in your fenders. The other thing, remember I said to put your weight on the wheels. If you don't have the money for one of those fancy wheel mock-ups and you don't have a wheel simulator to hang your tires on to check for clearances and stuff, just use the piece of flat stock like I was talking about on your wheel. Make you a little crossbar that can go through one end of it with a piece of all thread so that you can put a couple of nuts on it at about the width that your tire is going to be. And then you'll be able to spin the axle and swing that through the wheel opening and check your clearance at the front and the back of the wheel opening. If you're careful, you can even do this stuff on the front wheels. Just remember that you need to account for where this is going to go with suspension compression and axle twist and that sort of stuff. Generally for a street truck, we make these clearances pretty tight because there's not a whole lot of body roll. But when you start getting into off-road applications, you typically need to go higher and wider, moving the wheels out of the wheel housing so that when the axle's rotating up as you put some frame twist into the truck, that it's not going to rub. But do yourself a favor and run some drills on how offset against overall tire width matters to you as far as fitting your wheels and tires. Backspace is not a reliable dimension, and it's the last number that I ever care to hear when I'm trying to set up a wheel and tire combo. Again, shoot me a note or comments if you have any questions. I'm happy to help. Have fun.